Hi, I'm Michael Giovine. I'm an associate professor of anthropology at Westchester University and director of our Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology. I also teach a class with Patricia Davidson in nutrition on sustainable food systems. And today I'm at the Gordon Natural Area down in South Campus here at Westchester University, where I'm going to be talking with Nur Ritter, who is our steward of the Gordon. The Gordon, as you can see, is about 200 acres of semi-natural woodland that's set aside for preservation here at Westchester University, and really is a crown jewel in our sustainability initiatives here on campus. It's a crown jewel for two reasons. The first is that it is an outdoor laboratory. It's a place where we can learn about sustainability, where we can conserve nature and observe the transformations in eastern woodlands going on right now. But also, it's one of these great examples of student activism that's tied to Earth Day. So Earth Day 50 years ago was a grassroots manifestation of predominantly student activism, and inspired by that, here 50 years ago, students at Westchester University pushed to save this area from development. So I think we'll have Nur talk a little bit more about this. But first, Nur, who are you? What is being a steward mean? Oh, there you are.
Hey, I'm Nur Ritter. I'm the Stewardship Manager of the Gordon, and I've been in that position for coming up on 4 years in January. And the Gordon, it's here because of student activism, or the forest is still a forest because of the efforts primarily of two students. So back in the late 60s, the university was planning to develop this area and make it the same type of development that's now in South Villages. So dorms, parking lots, things along that line. Never actually seen the plans, but that's my impression. And so two undergrads, David Fleury, Brad Gottfried, who were members of the biology club, really felt like this was a very special and valuable place. Even 50 years ago, southeastern Pennsylvania was really starting to embrace development. There just weren't that many mature forests left, and the Gordon has got a large block where the trees are over 200 years old, and it's got a really pretty amazing diversity, not only of plants but fungi, insects. It really is a treasure.
Sure. And do they go and visit here often? I mean, is this something that why did they even think about this?
You know, they had coursework down here, and I don't really know if the biology club had any activities specifically targeted for the Gordon, but I think, you know, back then, if you were a student on campus and you liked nature, this would have been the place to go. And so for 3 years they fought the development, and in conjunction with the first Earth Day, Board of Trustees agreed to make the Gordon into a designated natural area, and hopefully protect it in perpetuity. And it really is, you know, quite a lovely and astonishing place. But as a forested fragment, surrounded by development, it faces a lot of stresses.
Sure. I mean, you can see even right now, I mean, we can't even be completely, you know, au natural here. I mean, we do have, you know, the power lines, and our stadium is right behind here. But it is really incredible, actually, that you can just go in a couple of these pathways here and you feel immersed in nature.
Yeah, and so why don't we take a look at a plant right next to me,
Okay.
and then we'll walk in.
All right. So, what do we have here?
So this is one of the forest goldenrods. I believe this one is zigzag goldenrod. But one of interesting things about this, in the U.S. there's about 750 native species of butterflies, and 110, so about a seventh of them utilize this genus as pollinators. There's 35 species of bees that use it for pollen, nearly half of which are dependent entirely on this. And in the Gordon, there's probably on the order of a dozen species of goldenrods, and some areas where they're really extensive. So we've got this place, this protected place, surrounded by development, but insects are willing to travel. So I'm sure there's a really good exchange between some of those needier bees coming on. We haven't built any bee fences around the perimeter of the Gordon, and we welcome them.
So, what are bee fences actually?
We're building a human one on the southern border.
Are you?
For a different type of immigrant.
That's true. Okay. Do you want to keep? You don't want to keep bees out, though.
We are an open community here.
Yeah, that's right. But it is really important. I mean, bees are some of the most endangered, yet fundamental insects that we have.
Absolutely, and it's nice to. It's always nice to run into bees. Not always nice to run into wasps, but we've got a pretty diverse insect community here. We're just on the verge of having identified species number 300. I think we're at 296, but I'm guessing that at a maximum that's probably a 10th or maybe a 20th of what's really out here.
So just really quickly, very quickly here, what do you do? What is a steward?
Chainsaw work, pick up trash, keep the trails open, and do research. So it's my job is really kind of a triage position. So when storms hit, it can completely redirect everything we've been planning to do, but the basic idea is to do whatever we can to keep the forest healthy, moving forward for as long as we can. This is a wood nettle.
Be careful then.
Yeah.
You're nettled.
It's weird.
Why is it weird?
Something's just really chewed it up.
Oh yeah, you're right. Look, you can see all that.
Yeah. There is a insect out here, the common kama. I don't know, I came up with that name, but it's the larvae are able to eat this stuff, and I don't know how they do it. They hang out on it. I'm not seeing any though. They're really black and white, covered with these spiny projections. Really kind of lovely in a extraterrestrial sort of way.
Sure. Well, how about the spotted lanternflies that we've been invaded with in the last year and a half?
We're invaded here as well.
Do they do any damage? Don't they like fruit trees and things, the butterfly bushes and stuff?
They like. There's a lot of native grape here, and grape and hops are two of the plants they really affect commercially. But we have an invasive hop species here, Japanese hops, and I'm always looking for lanternflies on that, and occasionally we'll see one like sitting on it, but no sign of having eaten it. And there's an invasive vine in the grape family, porcelain berry, and I have seen lanternflies on there and signs of pretty heavy browsing, and the lanternfly larvae were the only insects on there. So I'm hoping that they're at least doing that.
Yeah. Would you say here's an extraterrestrial native?
Yeah.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
It is an oxymoron, but I don't know if we can get close enough to the flowers, but these little, they got these lips with these two wings coming out. It always looks like Invasion of the Body Snatchers to me or something, but this is richweed, Collinsonia canadensis, and indicator of rich soil. And got a bunch more of that nettle, so looking quite a bit like that richweed, but I'm not seeing any sign of that larva. Too bad, that thing is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So here's an edible plant. So this is a native. This is a spice bush, Lindera benzoin, and another common name is Appalachian allspice. And deer don't really care for this at all. So this is a native that is increasing in abundance in the Gordon. And these berries will become red when they're ripe. And then if you're industrious, you come out here and collect them and sell them on eBay. There is some market for it. But if you were out here trying to survive on food in the wild, this is a good one. There's a tendency, or a trait.
Oh, I can smell it already.
Yeah, it's very aromatic.
And we're socially distanced here.
We are. And yeah, this family, it's in the family Lauraceae, and a lot of commercial spices are found in that family. So cinnamon, allspice, and so fruits that develop in the summer are typically high in sugar, but fall developing fruits like spicebush tend to be high in fat. So the wildlife, and including hominids, are trying to put on winter stores rather than get that summer buzz.
True.
And so this one, very hard to collect, very hard to find enough to collect, because the birds eat them as soon as they're ripe. Staining polypore?
So not edible.
No, actually it can be. I don't think it's high quality. I'm gonna come back and collect some, try and figure that one out. It's not one, I don't have a strong sense of the idea of that one. It looks like three different things to me.
What are you rooting in here for? What are we looking for?
Yeah, so this plant,
The white flowers?
white flowered, it's in the aster family, and this holds the distinction of being the first species whose scientific name I ever learned. And, but this is boneset Eupatorium perfoliatum, and it's got these really kind of unique leaves that that merge together right around the stem, so they go.
Oh yeah, look at that.
It's called a perfoliate leaf.
Mm.
And bone set was used by Native Americans both for healing broken bones and also, I believe, for breaking fevers.
Well, would you have to boil it or something?
No idea. Probably a tea, but
Yeah.
again, never used it. Still one of my favorite plants. It's more commonly found in wetlands, but this is a drainage area along this power line, and we've got this little built-up trail, and so it's growing in a wet ditch.
Sure. So another thing, if you were foraging, right? So for my class, we're learning about subsistence strategies in foraging this week. And so typically when it wasn't COVID, we'd take the students into the Gordon, and we'd be looking around with Nur to see what we could survive on if we had to forage here. If there's a zombie apocalypse, you always used to say, right?
Right.
What could we do?
I'm still worried about that.
So what? Yeah, I am worried about that. So what do we see so far? So if we broke our bones, we have some remedy.
Got bone set. You get fat-rich fall
Right.
berries,
Which was delicious. It smelled so good. Probably brush your teeth with it.
and then so this area. So we've already, in a limited sense, been introduced to beech trees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the silvery smooth bark.
With the yellow.
The yellow is paint poorly marked trail. So beech have a nut called a beech nut. They don't think they're falling yet, but they're edible. A lot of species utilize them. Black bears, at least up in New England, allocate territory based on beech abundance.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
very important food for bears. And the nut is small. It's probably less than a quarter inch. It's a spiny capsule with 3 nuts inside, or 3 nut-like fruits inside.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were starving and really needed to eat, you do a lot worse than beech nut.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. What did you just get here?
Yeah, so this is a hickory nut. This area of the forest we're in, pretty rich area, and there's a lot of hickory. There's shagbark further down the trail. There's bitter nut and pig nut. Shag nut is excellent food. It's really rich in fats, very tasty. Bitter nut, I have never eaten. I would assume.
I assume it's bitter.
Yeah. So maybe you can.
So where are we looking?
Maybe you can leach it.
Sure. What do we see? Is there another hickory? What is this thing here? No,
This is
that's
a gall.
and this is maybe. Oh, look at and acorns too. So acorns are. Acorns were one of the staples of Native American cuisine.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of cultures that eat a lot of acorns.
Right. The issue, though, is that it has to be boiled because there's a sort of a poisonous chemical in it. You can't eat it raw.
Right. Yeah. There's a really bitter tannin, so you have to, do like a number of water changes. So it's
Leaching out
you
the.
grind it up, and
But the what do we have? That's not a beech nut. That's
it's a hickory.
Hickory.
Hickory, you can at least the shagbark, the edible ones, you just eat them. It's a bit of work cracking the nuts.
Sure.
But,
Squirrels seem to do it pretty well.
yeah, and that's, again, coming to zombie apocalypse, you're going to be competing with squirrels. So if you're vegan, you're going to be at a disadvantage. If you're omnivorous and don't mind eating some squirrels, you're going to get those hickory nuts one way or the other.
That's right. Yeah.
5 hickory seedlings right here.
Where? Let's see. Where
Okay,
is
so
we got some hickories dropping.
got a hickory seedling, one there, one there.
Right, got
Got
oak.
a cherry. We got two tulip tree, another hickory.
So what are the likelihoods that these things will actually grow into big trees?
That's a good question. One of the things we're doing. Historically, there's been a fair amount of tree planting out here, and we continue to do tree planting. But the last 3 years, we've been finding native seedlings that have germinated, and we've been putting cages around them.
Right. Maybe we
And,
could find one of those
Yeah,
cages.
there's a farm of them right over there.
All right, let's maybe take a look.
Stage.
But you have a very unattractive fungi?
Yeah, right here. And
Oh
the
my
thing,
goodness.
the
Why
thing
is
I
that your
like about
favorite?
this is the common name is dog nose fungus.
Yeah, it does look like a dog's
And,
nose.
yeah, when you see it at its peak, it is almost indistinguishable. And
Now, not edible though.
no, and if you were to cut into that, making cross section, it would be decidedly unappealing. You would sooner eat a dog nose.
Something was eating something here though.
Yeah, somebody had some acorns, probably.
What are these?
squirrel.
Look, you can see. Are these acorns? These are bigger. No,
those are
they're not.
hickory,
These are
yeah.
hickory nuts.
Deer just don't respect property rights. And to a lesser extent, people using the garden. As we constructed this fence, it got vandalized severely 2 times. So here, one of the things we've been playing around with is move this out of the way a bit. We've been inoculating logs with edible fungi, and with an aim towards providing some fungi for some edible mushrooms for the food bank. And these 6 logs were inoculated with chestnut mushrooms. Yeah, and then if we'd come yesterday, it would have looked a whole lot more edible, but those are past being edible. And so we've done 3 years now of inoculating these logs. The species of log we use is tree of heaven, so we're taking down the primary habitat for, or breeding habitat for spotted lanternfly. And these are actually a little too big. We can't really move them easily, but
So explain what we have here for a second. Hold on. So
yeah,
what is this one here?
that's also the chestnut.
Oh, it's just a smaller version of that.
Yeah, so that guy soon will be about yay big. And so these holes, we drilled a series of holes along the upper half of each log. Used mushroom spawn grown in sawdust, and with a special tool plugged it in there, and then we covered each one with wax. That's the little black ring there is kind of the remnant wax. And this year's effort, we were a bit late. There's once you harvest that wood, you have to wait 1 to 2 months before you inoculate it, because trees have antifungal compounds. You have to wait for those to, I don't know if dissolve is the right word, but become disenfranchised, whatever. So, but then you have to inoculate. You can't wait too long, because all the spores in the air are seeing this and thinking, hey, I'll form a community. So I think we were a bit late with this one. We did 2 species that year. The oyster mushrooms did really well and are still continuing to do well. And the chestnut, the Foliota, probably about half the logs we inoculated did well, and the bigger ones, they didn't fruit at all last year, which is when they should have first fruited, but now we're seeing at least some fruiting this year, so that's hopeful. Is this year's, and I'm keeping that under this burlap.
This year?
Yeah, and I've got burlap on it just so I can keep it moist. And so that's what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look at that.
And then
So that's not mold, that's actually wax.
that's wax.
Yeah, you can see.
And what we'd really hope to be seeing, and I'm not seeing it too much, but as the fungal mycelium develops through the log, should be seeing like rays of fungi lined up with each of these holes. And on some of those, we've seen it really clearly, and others not. And that's what we're looking for. And this we've got 2 species. We did a different, something in the same genus as the chestnut. And then, what was it called? I think it was called Namiko, the Japanese highly regarded edible. I've never had it. This is really a mess, but I'm going to blame that on being down to just one person working. So this is Canadian wood nettle, and it's very nettly. And
Yeah, if you could see.
but there's a species of caterpillar. I don't know how close you can zoom in. This is the common kama, and it's a lepidopteran. I don't know if I've never seen the adult moth or a butterfly, but probably a moth. It's kind of dull colored anyway. But somehow this species is able to survive on this nettle.
Oh, that's awesome. And it eats it, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we were seeing earlier.
And every one of these doubled over leaves is probably one under there.
So why are you growing this nettle here? Is it edible?
No, this nettle is growing itself.
Naturally?
Yeah, so
What are you trying to grow here?
in this bed we've got hepatica, we've got liverworts, we've got some American ginseng. That's the American ginseng.
What does liverwort do?
Liverwort's just, it's a native that, it's one of the spring ephemerals, and you know, it's naturally occurs here at the Gordon, but it seems to have diminished in the Canadian wild ginger. I don't think we'll find, I think we're
Wild ginger?
yeah. Oh yeah, so forager people, this guy at the very least you can, as you're eating your squirrel, yeah, you,
Stir-fried squirrel and ginger. Sounds like a great mix.
yeah.
And didn't we see these already?
Yeah, that's the zigzag goldenrod. I just rubbed against that nettle. I can
You're itchy now.
I can assure you it really does sting. But,
Snap
yeah, this is jewelweed or touch me not. I don't know if we. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Just shot out.
Yeah, so it's got ballistic seed dispersal. I don't think I've had a student intern yet who hasn't loved to do this, but it was a dud. But yeah, touch me not. Also known as jewelweed.
What are we looking at?
Those mushrooms. So that's-
Puffballs?
yeah,
And those edible?
they're edible when they're still white inside and they're decidedly not edible when they've turned brown like this.
What happens, like, when they're brown?
I don't know if it would kill you, but you would be unhappy.
Oh.
I've seen a lady on oh yeah. Yeah, so that's golden fairy helmets.
Oh, they look so pretty.
I've seen that lady on her. Yeah, and it's
Can you eat them? That's my
no,
question.
not that I've
Nope.
ever heard it. It's one of the more, because they're so small, I don't think of it as being like one of the more abundant fungi, but we run into it all the time. So it's one of the more common fungi species.
This is a what?
So this is umbrella tree,
Yeah.
Magnolia.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think tripetala, but it's a state listed species.
Mm-hmm.
It's a native, of course, state listed, but you know, I'm sure this is just from somebody's planting. Like we've got a number of native trees here that are known from just one individual or one, in this case, one grouping. And I'm just guessing, you know, some bird ate the fruit from
Sure.
that
Magnolia.
commercially planted one in somebody's yard nearby and came over here and pooped, and now we got
We've got some magnolia trees.
yeah, and
That's funny.
you know, there's all the other natives like that I've seen. Also know of them being planted on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Just the way it is.
That's the way it is. What are you doing? Looking on the ground. What'd you find?
Yeah, so earlier we were talking about beech nuts and saying that they were an edible product from beech trees and that very important in bear diet.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the spiny outer case. And then in that you get this tri-shaped nutlet. And you had to, this one I don't think was quite ready, but you had to peel off that outer layer. I don't know how bears do all this.
With their big.
I don't think they do much peeling, but in order for it to be enjoyable.
Right. Can't really focus on it, but it is like a.
And I've eaten.
Can I just eat this like this, or do I need to boil it?
You know, I've never read anything about preparation. I've eaten them, and haven't found it real enjoyable. But they you know, I assume they were used in flavoring for beech nut gum back when that was a thing. But no.
Plum Run. Right behind the track, actually. Kind of one of the areas of the end of the resort.
Yeah, so we're talking about the impacts of non-native earthworms, and you know, those of us who've done a lot of gardening have always thought of earthworms as having a pronounced positive effect. But you know, in the forest, you know, the vast majority of worms are non-native, and there's an abundance there that's really just heavily impacting
How did they
forest
get here?
function.
From the Europeans?
Yeah, from people emptying out bait cans, and you know, just they came with agricultural products. They came, you know, were intentionally brought. And you know, at the time of when the Europeans first encountered this continent, forests like this would have had like a foot of leaf litter, a foot thick. And now it's really just a shallow layer. You know, it's what dropped by the beginning of the fall, it's just what, a little bit left from the year before, and then the end of the fall we'll have a little bit more build up, and then it'll get broken down. But one of the things that does is makes rain events much more erosive. So when there was a foot of leaf litter, it acted like a sponge, and so it would rain, it would soak up, and then it would release it slowly. But now, if you come down here in a big storm, it's like chocolate milk rushing across the landscape.
Kind of robbing nutrients.
Yes, and you get increased channelization. And then things flow even more quickly. And there was a big rainstorm, I guess about 6 weeks ago, and it just scoured these slopes. I mean, it was significant. I was shocked by how much damage it did.
Yeah. So I mean, you can see this kind of interconnectedness also of even agriculture. I mean, the birth of agriculture 1,000 years ago, and what we started to do, really changed the entire environment. Even those areas that were completely natural, that you could forage in, had transformed as well. So you don't have to think.
Flowers on that one.
Let's see, where are we looking? Oh yeah, there's that beech drop. What is that again?
It's a root parasite only on beech trees, and despite being a parasite, I think it's really lovely. Flower a bit like an orchid, not as exciting, but
Yeah. So I see here, like, you got a lot of these plants. I mean, this looks like more human intervention than natural with all of these, these coverings so the deer don't eat it. I mean, it seems to me there's a lot of work to keep this seemingly natural, but it's not really natural.
No, and that's, I think that's the coin of the realm now. So, you've got a situation where understory is just getting ravaged by herbivores, too many herbivores. We don't have any wolves or bats or top level predators, and so we're in a situation. This area, these are ones we planted, but if it had been cage seedlings and they were tall enough, this is also how it would look. And
sure.
It's hard not to be ambivalent, to feel ambivalent about that. On the one hand, when you're out in nature, you want it to feel, you want to feel removed from human influence.
Sure.
But
this is my question then, because then why go through all this trouble? Why don't you just let it change as it's naturally going to change?
Yeah, and there's an extensive and spirited debate about that in the literature and in the restoration community, and I think the biggest or the strongest argument for it is, we've got this forest fragment, and it's under pressure, and it's shifting away from being maximum diversity towards diminished diversity, but it's still astoundingly diverse. Like at this point, we've noted more than 1,500 species in the Gordon, and clearly we just know of a fraction of what's really here, and groups that are experiencing global duress at this point, like honeybees monarch butterflies. They're well represented here, and we have habitat that and species that are supporting a rich network of other species, and it's hard to imagine that this wouldn't always be some sort of forest, barring Wawa purchasing it or Amazon deciding
Sure.
this was good corporate headquarters. But, it's can be so different when it's just, an area can feel so different when it's just a few weedy tree species like tree of heaven
Sure.
and empress tree and
So your intervention is really to ensure that it has the kinds of, let's say, biodiversity that what would have originally been here if there weren't the human encroachment, or is it that we want to, maximize the biodiversity for our research? I mean, what would that be?
yeah, and, a bit of a hybrid. I mean, because the other factor we haven't discussed is global climate change. And so, when I first started doing restoration work 20 years ago, people were pretty adamant, if something wasn't native to a particular area and you were planting it, that was just fancy landscaping.
Right.
But now, there's a whole thought of, well, we really need to be preparing for a shift in regional temperature and regional climate characteristics, and so not really looking to recreate a historical landscape so much anymore as trying to encourage things to go in a direction where they have maximum resilience and maximum flexibility.
Sure.
And if somebody snuck away from planet Earth in a spaceship in 1950 and came back here and was upset because there was some southern species dominating the canopy, well, somebody can deal with that when that happens.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I'm no longer a strict adherent to historical
Authenticity.
There we
Is
go.
the tricky word. But that's true, though. I study authenticity a lot because I work in museums and everything else. And of course, authenticity is much more a discourse about what is real, and what is useful. And typically when we deal with historic preservation, we pick a point in time that is authentic. But of course, if you picked a different point in time, that would be the authenticity. And so, I think in a way, like you started talking about, there's a triage kind of work being done here because you're just trying to keep it living and biodiverse and useful. And again, useful to humans, as well as to the squirrels and all the other animals. And it's just as authentic now as it was 500 years ago. It's just different. The earth has changed, both climatically, but also who's here. And I mean, unfortunately, we can maybe see a little bit that we have, what is it? That's our track, right? I see somebody running on it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the new reality that the Gordon is. It has these neighbors and it has to grow, and the transforming that's going to happen is going to be natural. All right, so we're back at the entrance here to the Gordon. You can always see it by the sign. But I did really want to thank you, Nur, for all of the time that you spent with us today, kind of showing us the riches of the Gordon, and also, of course, what we would do if there's a zombie apocalypse. What could we eat as foragers? And, really to have a discussion about biodiversity that I think was really very important. I think, it's great that this is here. I think it's a lesson for students and faculty in the community. It's a good open green space to be, and I do hope that everybody can take advantage of it. It's free and open to the public, so I hope to see you back here at the Gordon again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck getting this all into one class length video.
Yes.